أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So this is our second lesson today, and our second lesson is on the fundamentals of project report writing. Yesterday we were talking about Islamic banking, and we gave a brief introduction to Islamic banking. We defined what Islamic banking is, and number two, we talked about the importance of Islamic banking. Then, number three, we talked about the principles of Islamic banking, the modes of Islamic banking. Then, we also talked about the trends and challenges facing the Islamic banking industry as a whole. So, in our lesson today, remember the name of this course is Project Report in Islamic Banking. So, yesterday we gave a brief introduction to Islamic banking. Now, today we shall also be giving a brief introduction to what? To project report. Like when you are talking about project report, what comes into your mind? So, these are our lessons objective. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to, number one, define a report and a project report. Number two, differentiate between a project report from other forms of writing. Number three, explain the primary purposes of project report writing. Number four, understand, identify, and analyze the target audience in project report writing. Then number five, apply tips for effective project report writing. Number six, identify and avoid common mistakes in project report writing. Number seven, demonstrate the steps in the project report writing process. And this course is very important for you because I think most of you, you are now writing your project. Most of you are writing your projects, your research, and you will be defending your thesis soon. So I think while you are writing your project, then it will really help you, this course. Okay? Now, on to our next point. Now, what is a report? So, when we are talking about a report, we are basically talking about, so a report is a structured document that presents information clearly and concisely. So that is in brief what a report is. So number one, it is a structured. When you are talking about something that is structured, you can think of something that is well organized, something that is formal. So that is the meaning of structured. So a report is a structured document that represents information in two ways. Number one, clearly and concisely. Clearly means al-wudu. A report needs to be very clear. Then concisely means al-khulasa. It needs to be very summarized. That is, you are summarizing a lot of information in just like 10, 15 pages. So it is often used to do what? To communicate findings, analysis, or recommendations based on research, investigation, or data collection. And another important thing is that the reports, they are factual and objective, focusing on delivering information in a logical and in an organized manner. So, and there are two things here. So number one, they are telling us the reports, they are factual. Factual means they're based on al-haqa'iq. Then objective, the opposite of objective is subjective. So objective means the report is just based on facts. It is not based on emotions. It is not based on feelings. It is basically it is based on data, you know? So reports are factual and objective, focusing on delivering information in a logical and organized manner. Now, so that is the definition of a report. But now, what is a project report? A project report is a formal document that provides a detailed account of a project's objective, the methodology that was used, findings, and conclusion. It serves as a comprehensive record of the project's execution and outcomes, often used for academic, professional, or organizational purposes. So when you're talking about project report, it is not only limited to academic, no. Sometimes professionally and organizationally, you normally use it. So some people, you normally work in organization, and sometimes they might require from you to write a report. So that is a project report. So it's not only restricted or limited to academics. So it's a formal document that provides a detailed account of a project objectives, methodology, findings, and conclusion. For example, you can find a student writing a project on what? For example, your research or your thesis topic can be about the impact of digital banking on customer satisfaction. So you will include in your research the research problem, the methodology, the data collection, the recommendation, the scope, ila ghairi dhalik. Another student can be writing about what? Another student conducting a research on Islamic microfinance will document their findings on how microfinance institutions operate under Sharia compliant principles, including data on their impact on financial inclusion. So you can think of project report as like your thesis, as like your dissertation, or like a research that you're writing. Now, somebody can ask the question, then how is a project report different from the other forms of writing? Remember, we have many forms of writing. For example, we have an essay, we have a letter, we also have creative writing, expressive writing. So how is a project report different from the other writings? Number one, it is purpose driven. So a project report is specifically written to document the progress, outcomes, and findings of a project. Unlike creative or expressive writing, which focuses on storytelling or personal expression. So this is the first characteristics of what? Of project reports. They are purpose driven. So for each and every project report that you are writing, it has al-hadaf. هناك الهدف وراء هذه التقارير. There is an objective behind project report. Number two, structured format. A report follows a formal structure, including sections like introduction, methodology, results, and conclusion, ensuring clarity and consistency. Whereas the other forms of writing, they may be more flexible in the structure. They can use maybe even an informal structure. But when you're writing a report, you are restricted to a formal structure. Number three, objective tone. Project reports maintain a factual, objective, and professional tone, avoiding subjective opinions or emotional language. So in a project, in a project report, there is no room for feeling. There is no room for al-ara, al-opinions. So it is all about ma hiya al-haqa'iq, ma hiya al-adilla. That is what we want you to put on the table. We don't want your feelings. Number three, data and evidence based, and this is what I was just saying now, al-adilla wal-barahin. They rely heavily on data, analysis, and evidence to support conclusion. Unlike the other types of writing, the narrative, the persuasive narrative, which may prioritize anecdotes or rhetorical techniques. So when you're talking about anecdotes or rhetorical techniques, they are techniques that are not necessarily based on data or evidence. Then number four, the target audience. Project reports are typically aimed at stakeholders, clients, or professionals, requiring technical and precise language. So when you are writing a report, a project report, you are targeting a certain group of people, And those group of people, they have their needs, which must be satisfied. Unlike the other forms of writing, for example, when you're writing a letter, maybe you're just targeting general audience with varied interest. So this is how a project report is different from the other forms of writing. Now, what is the primary purpose of project report writing? Why do we normally write project report? Number one, for documentation purposes, to provide a detailed record of the project's objectives, processes, outcomes, and lessons learned for future reference. So when we are writing a project report, because we need to have our copy in our office, we need to have a copy in our file. So we will use this project report as a reference that will help us, for example, to learn what were the mistakes that we did. Communication. So we normally use project report to convey the project's progress. How is the project going? What are the results? What are the findings? So we are communicating to who? To the stakeholders, the team members, or decision makers in a clear and structured manner. Number three, we use the project report to evaluate. That is, to assess the success of the project against its goal. Remember, at the beginning of every project, for those students who have done project management, at the beginning of any project, we normally set the objectives. We normally set the SMART objectives that we want to achieve. So at the end of the project, when you are evaluating our project, then we will come back. We are going to come back to what? We are going to come back to those objectives. We are going to ask ourselves, did we achieve the objectives that we set at the beginning? If yes, then we are successful. If no, we have to ask ourselves, Limada. Then accountability, to demonstrate transparency and responsibility in the use of resources, time, and efforts invested in the project. So there need to be a way that to be accountable. So a project report can help us to do what? To know to what extent, how are we using our resources, our time, and our effort. Then the project reports can be an element that can help us in decision making. That is to provide data-driven insights and recommendations that inform future action, improvements, or similar projects. Then the other objectives of project report writing can also be a well-structured project reports normally aim to do what? That is to clearly define the research problem and objective, like in your research you're writing. So in your research, when you're writing your thesis, which is a project report, you have to clearly tell us, Mahi al-mushkilatul bahth, like why are you writing this research? And sometimes it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to formulate the research problem. I'm currently supervising some students, and they are really struggling when it comes to formulating the research problem. So you are asking the student, what is the problem? Like, why are you writing this research? So some students cannot even explain, like, why are you writing? Why did you decide to choose this topic? Show us there is a problem, but they cannot show us there is a problem. They cannot give evidence. So if you cannot show us there is a problem, then why are you writing this research in the first place? Number two, to provide a systematic review of existing literature and previous research. When you're writing your project research, what you need to do what? You need to do what is known as literature review. So you review what is there, and you review the existing literature and the previous research. And when you are doing that, it will help you to know the gaps. And because of these gaps, that is why you're writing the research. Maybe there is a methodology gap. There is maybe, for example, a contextual gap, you know. Describe the research methodology used for data collection. Analyze and interpret research findings in a logical manner. Present conclusion and recommendation based on the study. then ensure transparency and accountability, as we have just said before, then contribute to academic and professional knowledge. Your research, by writing your research, you are aiming to do what? To contribute to the academic field. Now, on to our next part. The next part of our topic today is understanding, identifying, and analyzing the target audience in project report writing. Remember, when you are writing a project, there is somebody, a project report, there is somebody who is going to read your report. So, for example, in our course, it is all about project report in Islamic banking. So, your target audience is Islamic, the managers in the Islamic banks. So, you can also have the government, they can also be your audience. You can also have the normal people who are going to read your research. So it's very important to define who the audience of your report. To whom are you writing the research or the report? So what is audience in a project report? So the audience in a project report refers to the individuals or groups who will read, review, or use the report. So that is in a nutshell the definition of audience. So there are the people who are going to review, to read your report. There are the people who are going to review your report, or there are the people who are going to use your report. So this can include stakeholders like clients, team members, managers, or external evaluators. They can be very many of them. So why is it important to understand your audience? Understanding your audience is crucial. Crucial means it's very important. Why? Because it determines how you present your information. So if you know your audience, you are going to know the style you are going to use, you are going to know the language you are going to use, you are going to know the tone of your report, you know, ila ghairi dhalik. For example, if your audience are people who did not go to school, you don't have to use a complex language because they will not understand. But if your audience are people who have gone to school, then you can write your report using a what? A technical language. So when we are talking about the types of audience, number one, we normally have the experts. These are people with deep knowledge of the subject. So, for example, bankers, for example, engineers, for example, doctors. These are people who are experts. So, if you're writing a report to them, use technical language and detailed data because they understand the field. They are well versed, they are well educated. Now, if you are going to write your report to the manager or to decision maker, these are people who need concise information to make decisions. For example, the manager of the Dahabshil Bank, he does not have time to read 100 pages. He does not have time to read 50 pages. He does not have time to read 20 pages. He does not have time to read 5 pages. Sometimes they might not even have time to read 2 pages. So when you're writing a research to a manager, focus on key finding and recommendation. This is what they need. They just need lubul mawdu. Just tell them, هذه هي المشكلة. So based on this مشكلة, سيتخذون القرار. They'll make the decision. So they don't have the time to go into the details. Then number 3, we have al-jamhur, the general audience. People with little or no knowledge of the subject. So when you're writing to the people, to the general people, what should you do? Use simple language and avoid jargon. Jargon means complex language. So these are people who did not go to school. They don't maybe even know how to read or maybe how to write. They are illiterate, basically. So you also have to balance. Use simple language that they can easily understand. And now if you're going broad, broad now we have different types of audience. For example, in this case, we have 5 of them. So for each and every type of audience, you should consider something. Number one, stakeholders or investors. When you're writing a report to investors, what should you do? What should be the consideration? Focus on outcomes. Focus on the return on investment and how the project aligns with their goal. Use clear, concise language and highlight key achievements. These are people who are investors, you know. So your report should focus more on profits. You know, your report should focus more on al-iradat, revenues. That is what they want to see. They don't want to see the research problem, research objective. That's not their business. Technical experts. So these ones include detail. They want detail. That is what we say. These are the experts. They need details, data, technical, specific. Managers emphasize on results, recommendation, and actionable insight. Use summaries. Use some charts. Use some visuals to present key points quickly. They don't have time to read. The general public and specialists, avoid jargon, avoid technical information. Simplify for them. Simplify complex concept to these people. Then the regulatory bodies, external evaluators, maybe like the government, you have to ensure compliance with standard, provide accurate data, and include all required documentation. Be formal and precise. So, for example, the government, they normally have a specific structure they need you to follow when you're writing your report. So you need to do what? When you're writing your report, ensure that you are focusing with their standard. Ensure that you are complying to their structure. Now, somebody can ask, what is the importance of identifying your audience? Like, why should I identify my audience even before I start writing my report? So number one, tailored communication. That is, it ensures the report is written in a language and style that resonates with the audience. Remember, report writing is communication, and you want people to understand you, right? If you want me to understand you, then use the language that it's easier for me. So use a language and style that resonates with the audience. Number two, relevant. Helps focus on the information that matters most to the readers, avoiding unnecessary detail. So for example, if I know my audience is a manager, I will know what they need. I will focus with satisfying their needs, and I'm going to avoid things that they don't need. Number two, clarity. Number three, clarity. It enables the use of appropriate terminology. If I know my readers, I'm going to know the appropriate terminology for them, avoiding complex or overly technical language if the audience is non-specialist, if they're not experts. Number three, engagement. Number four, engagement. Keeps the audience interested and ensures the report meets their expectation. So if you know your audience, you are going to use a good language, simple language maybe, and they'll be interested in your report. But if you write your report before knowing your audience, they might be disinterested in your report. The lastly, effective decision making. Provides the right information to the right people, aiding informed decision. So when you identify them, then it basically means you are going to give them the right information. And when you give them the right information, they are going to make the what? Informed decision. Now, what are the tips for effective project report writing? Like when you want to write a good report, Mahi al-Mabadi. So number one, clarity and conciseness. Clarity means al-wudu. Concise means being direct to the point. So use simple, clear language, avoid unnecessary or overly complex sentences. Be concise and to the point. La talif, la tadur. some people, when they're writing reports, they talk about unnecessary things. We went there, we came back, we did this. No, be direct. Number two, logical structure. Organize content with clear headings, subheading, and sections. Your report should be having sections. Follow a logical flow where there is introduction, tasalsul. Audience focus, focus more on your audience. Tailor content and style to suit the audience needs and their level of understanding. Highlight information that is most relevant. Number four, accuracy and evidence. When you're writing your report, always focus in what? Al-haqa'iq wal-ma'lumat. Figures that are accurate and up to date. It's very important when you're writing your research, your thesis, to ensure that the information that is inside your report is up to date. Currently, I'm supervising some students, and every time I have to remind them that their data and information in their thesis, it has to be up to date. When you ensure that when you're writing your research, the information you're using in your research should be for at least the last 10 years. At least, that is for masters. When you're writing your PhD, your information should be at least for the last 5 years. But there are some students, when they're writing their thesis, they're using information 1981, 1995, 1970. No, you cannot. You cannot write a research. So it means your research is not updated. You are using, how many things have changed since 1981? And you are still putting those data in your thesis. So ensure when you're writing your research, your information is up to date. And always ensure that you support your claims with evidence. That is why when you're writing your thesis, you have to give the references. Where did you get this information? Unfortunately, many students, when they're writing their research, they even don't give the reference. They just go to ChatGPT, they copy paste, and they give it to you. They want you to evaluate, and they want you to give you some good marks, A+ in their thesis, and they are copy pasting in DeepSeek. Just unfortunate. Visual aid. When you're writing your report, ensure you have enough charts, graphs, tables. Professional tone. Maintain a formal and objective tone. Avoid emotions. Proofreading and editing. Before presenting your thesis report, always proofread. Check for grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Review for consistency in formatting. Ensure the report is free of typos and inaccuracy. And this is very important. You, now that you're writing your research, it is very important before you submit your work to your supervisor, ensure that you check everything. But for some students, they don't care. Just copy paste, send it to the supervisor. So now the supervisor has to struggle. Then actionable recommendation. Provide clear, practical, and well-justified recommendation. Focus on solution and next. And that is the main objective of any research. Because at the end of the day, when you write your thesis, the last chapter 4, chapter 5, you are going to analyze the data. Once you analyze the data, there is the element of recommendation. That is probably going to help a lot. What are the common mistakes to avoid in project report? Number one, the first mistake that people normally make, there is the lack of clarity. That is, you use a lot of complex language. So always ensure you use simple, direct language. Number two, poor structure. That is, your research is very disorganized, without clear section. So you need to fix this by having heading, subheading, and ensure there is a logical flow. We normally tell our students you have the Lincoln format when you're writing your research. When you're writing your thesis, we give you the format and we tell you to use the format. Use our structure. But some students, unfortunately, they don't use the structure. You just go to the internet, copy paste a research from another university with their structure, then you copy paste and you submit it. So when you submit it, you're not going to get the marks. Why? Because you did not follow our structure. Ignoring the audience, sometimes you don't mind about your audience. So always ensure that you focus on your audience and you give them the relevant information. Overloading with information. Like many students, they normally make a mistake when they're writing their projects. They include a lot of unnecessary detail. So only ensure that you have necessary information in your research. Number 5, lack of evidence. Some students, when they're presenting their work, they don't have the references, they don't have supporting documents. So always ensure you have references. Sometimes another error, grammatical error, always check spellings, punctuations, proofread your work before submitting. Inconsistent formatting, inconsistent font. And this is what we are experiencing with most of our students. In the Lincoln format, they tell you to use Times Romans size 12. It's very clear in our structure. But some students, what they do, they just do their thing, la mubala. You go to chapter 1, Times Romans, chapter 2, Calibri, chapter 3, there is another font size, font size, font style. So you find that you have your research that is a mushakal. That, like, I don't know, like most of our students, they don't have a very good background in writing research, and it is going to affect you. Some students there now, we were supervising them last year, they failed their research, they're still doing it until now because they don't understand what we really want. So please ensure the fonts when you're writing your research, there should be some element of uniformity from chapter 1 to chapter 5. Ensure it is Times Roman, size font should be size 12. Don't mix things. No clear recommendation. Sometimes when you're writing your chapter 5 is where there is a lot of recommendation. So sometimes you find some students, when they're writing the research, they don't have the recommendation. So this is just but a summary of the common mistakes that students, they normally make. Now, what are the steps in project writing? So there are 6 steps when you're writing your project. Number 1 is planning and preparation. So before you write your report, it is always important to plan. And in planning, this is where you define your purpose. Like, why am I writing this report? Is it to inform? Is it to analyze? Is it to recommend something? Like, somebody can ask you, why are you writing your thesis? Why did you choose this topic? So this has to happen in the planning stage. Like, this is where you have to answer this question. But unfortunately, some students, when it comes to planning, they are not keen enough. Identify the audience. Identify who is going to benefit from your research. Set your objective. That is why you normally have research objectives. What are your research objectives? Create a timeline. You have to have a timeline that is going to help you in your research. Number 2, research and data collection. So you need to gather and have enough information. And we will discuss more about this. We normally have the primary data and you have the secondary data. So in your research, chapter 1, 2, 3, most of the time it's just secondary data. But when you go to chapter 4 and 5, you have to, it's more about primary research, where you use the questionnaires, the surveys, the interview. Then organizing, you have to organize your work, create an outline, arrange the information, using the format that we gave you, basically the Lincoln format. Then after that, you start drafting the report, where you have the introduction, present your findings, analyze your data using the SPSS, then you write your conclusion. Then while you're all doing this, don't forget to revise and edit. Check for clarity, verify, edit your grammar, and always seek feedback from your supervisor. Always be in touch. You finish chapter 1, send it, ask the supervisor if there is any mistake that needs to be fixed. Then lastly is finalizing and submitting the report, the final document. Ensure the report is polished and ready for submission, ready to be defended. Format, proofread, then submit it on deadline. So those are, and these steps are very important, by the way. You need to follow these steps when you are writing your research or when you're writing your project. So is there any question? That's the end of our watch. As I take the attendance. So please, there is one thing. Remember, we are going to have Ramadan. We are going to have Ramadan is just around the corner. So I like your suggestion. My suggestion was, can we finish this course before Ramadan? Can we add some days, some 2 more days, so that we finish this course before Ramadan? Or we shall be studying even during the Ramadan? What's your suggestion? Can we add some days, then we finish the course before Ramadan, or we wait until we shall be doing the course during Ramadan? What's your suggestion? Can we add 2 more days in a week? Naam. Can we add?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. We have 2 minutes. Be fast. We have 2 minutes before
yeah. We are also engaged in research. I think if we squeeze and add some days before Ramadan, we may also get delayed in our research. So I will suggest, me personally, we can extend, we can continue until we finish. There's no problem. The early days of Ramadan, we can finish, I think so.
Okay, so your
That's my suggestion.
So you're basically saying we just continue the Thursdays and Friday?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other suggestion?
Ustad, can we have maybe a kind of a pool in our WhatsApp group so that we can go to the pool and suggest how many people needs to go for addition of 2 more days, or we continue? I think for Ramadan, we need to be also concentrating on ibadah, Taraweeh. So I think it will be much better if we can add 2 more days and then we finish the chapter and we put a lot of effort on finalizing the topic. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. So I think I will create a poll. I will create a poll in all your WhatsApp group. Then from the poll, we can know the suggestions of the students. Then we will go by the majority. I think that will be the best approach. So if the majority say we add like 2 more days, so that, because we can finish it, we only need 8 classes. So we have already finished 2 classes. So we only have six classes remaining. Only 6, So I don't know, we shall make a poll. Then from the poll, then I'll get your ideas and we'll go by your ideas, inshallah. Okay, thank you. Inshallah, until next time, inshallah. I will send the post to your group, inshallah.